So sorry about that, Nagahide. Thank you for the $10, sir, and I'm glad that Malachi is here to keep me straight. He says, let me scroll back to where it actually is. How do you manage terrain and movement if you're using theater of the mind? And that is, I think that's a great question. I have an answer to it, but let's start with the panelists first. So we'll start with Kito. If you're doing theater of the mind, how do you manage terrain and movement?
You have to be very descriptive. That's why I primarily do theater of the mind. So you have to be clear, and I'm not always clear myself, but you do have to be clear of the objects, of the pitfalls, of the dangers that are around.
Okay. Malachi?
Well, yeah, I will agree with Tim about the being descriptive. And from like a mechanic standpoint, when you're going to do something like, say, like if you're moving through difficult terrain or stuff, just a quick check or something, to just keep the flow of the game moving. And I know, like, old school 7C, which is one of these things that I really liked about it, is like, depending on what kind of terrain you were on, depending on what skill you used for defense. You had a skill called footwork. That was your typical defense. But if you're on, say, a ship, you're on the top of the peak of the roof, you were using your balance skill for your defense instead. Mm-hmm. I think that was like a really cool way to differentiate how your character was made for the different terrains.
Okay. And Mr. Max?
We do like exclusively like theater of the mind, like, and the one way we deal with it first, like it's almost like the opposite of like what Tim said here, Akito. Like we say, like, because we allow player to make assumption about the world, right? About the scene that makes sense. We describe what's important, what's significative, but then if you're in a tavern, you can assume that there's going to be like tavern stuff that are over there, right? So table and chair and fireplace and stuff like that. And then if a player, like, if it makes sense to be there, right, it's there, that's fine, right? The player can just like say, well, I push him toward the fireplace or try in the fireplace. No fireplace was mentioned before, but why wouldn't it be one? That again, we just be like the GM, like cock blocking the player, say, well, actually, like this place, there's no, like, for some reason, there's no fireplace, right? Just like, no, there's a fireplace there. There you go. Like, all the players have to listen to each other. So we build like, and the scene goes from being more flu to be more finely detailed as the game goes on. And I really like something that an approach that Rick from 28mm RPG said. I say, if I describe a scene and I say there are pillars and there are barrels, and I don't precise exactly where they are, it doesn't matter. And then once a player interact with the pillar and the barrel and specify where they are in the scene, then that's where they are.
And so it's their quantum barrels and quantum pillars.
Quantum barrel, exactly. But it's just like the scene, like there's those element there in the scene. We keep it somewhat flu, and as the player interact with the world and they have a cool idea and they want to do something like that, then the scene become more detailed, and we can always like add to the picture together that we have in our brain, right? So we know they're there. They've been mentioned they're there, but where is it exactly? Are the barrel just like together in the middle of the room, or they next to each one barrel, next to each pillar or stuff like that? It doesn't matter until it does, and it does when a character interact with it. So that's how we handle it. Like,
one of the things I would caution. Sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I'm done now.
Oh. One of the things that I would caution game masters, and I think that there are some out there who do this really well and some who don't, is you've got to be careful of over describing to the point that the players stop listening. Mm-hmm. As somebody who I think does a really good job of this is GM Fritz. Forge and Brush Gaming. Again, don't like the games he plays, but I love the way he describes creatures and rooms. It's enough to put the visual in your head, but not so much that you're like, yeah, whatever. And I think there's a good balance in it. Some game masters have it, some don't. It's actually something that I've struggled on or struggled with in the past. I do a hybrid personally. I'm not pure theater of the mind. I like whiteboards. I don't know. I have like a whiteboard fetish or something. So I like to scribble things out on a whiteboard. But I start a chat here because I partially disagree with this. And I don't want to dive too far down the rabbit hole, but I will give each of the panelists a chance to talk because we are technically in segment 4 and we haven't even started it yet. But Reading Dave says, when theater of the mind, I describe and confirm distances frequently. For example, you have 2 opponents, orcs 5 feet from you. You have another orc with a halberd 15 feet away to the forward left. I love every part of that except for one.
Mm-hmm.
I never give out exact measurements. I despise the concept of exact measurements. I mean, there are some things that by being a person, I can pretty much judge that somebody's within range to hit or so on and so forth. And this got, this is why we won't mention his name, but there's somebody who hangs around with Biggest Geekus all the time who is a little cunt, I would just say it, and he's been a little bitch over that because we got into a discussion over exact ranges. Now, there's nothing wrong necessarily with giving it out. Just me personally, no, I don't want you to know the exact range because when you cast that lightning bolt or fireball, I don't believe in the whole, well, it ends right there so I can stand 1 inch from it. Excuse me. And then, by the way, I am not busting, oh God, where did his comic go? Reading Dave's balls. This isn't about him, but he said something that I just want to know. You don't know exactly. If you're in the cusp of short and medium range, is it short or medium? I don't know. You're not a rangefinder. Now, if you're playing a sci-fi game, that could be completely different. Earth Dawn, man, I've been mentioning that a lot today, actually has a spell to take care of that called Triangulate. Yeah. Good, cast Triangulate. Waste the time to cast Triangulate, and now you got the exact measurement. I hate, like, even when you go into a room, I don't say, oh, this room is 15 by 20. I'll be like, this room is about maybe 10 to 15 paces across by, looks like a few more than that, maybe 15 to 20 paces across. Now, what is a pace? Who knows? If I'm talking to the halfling, I might double it. I might, whatever. I don't think that closely about it because I don't think that the specific size matters unless it matters. And then do something to measure the room.
I agree with you on that. And like one of the reasons I like Theater of the Mind is because, like, in the way I like to engage in those role-playing games, I want people to be in the mindset of the character. I want people to see the scene through the eyes of the character. I want you to imagine the scene from the first person. When you take out the battle map and stuff like that, suddenly, like, you're in third person from up high. You have perfect like tactical understanding of everything that's going on. When you're in a fight, that's not how things goes, right? Things are messy. Things move around. Things are fast-paced. And I like when a player sometimes is gonna say, like, I take cover behind the barrel. I look over and I reassess the situation. I count how many people are still standing. Yeah, that's your turn, you do? That's great. That's a great turn, right? And then as a GM, we're gonna give you some information. Yeah, there's still five guy like that, right? I like when things are messy. If I give you, like, if we have like infinite time, we can just look at the battle map, have the exact measurement, the grid and stuff like that. That's not how it goes, right? You're not in the right field.
War is too chaotic for that.
Yeah.
I disagree with you slightly on the facts. That's because several reasons. Number one, especially keeping this warrior focus, you're training in all these different forms of combat. You're training in the spear, you're training in swords, you're training in the bow. You're going to learn distances quite well, and especially if you're specialized in the bow, you're going to learn your longer distances even better. So you're going to be able to know how far away 100 feet is, how far away 200 feet is.
That's not fully true, though.
Sorry.
That's what I mean. In the military, we use rangefinders.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is we actually have range cards that says that tree is 120 meters away, so that when we were shooting, we would elevate the weapon as appropriate. That house is 40 meters away. That other DFP over there is 200 meters. So we actually had range cards for that. That doesn't mean you can't judge. What I do when it comes to exact measurements, this is how I do. Take a baseball player or a football player, get them off of the football field with yard markers, and just say, throw the ball exactly 50 yards.
Yeah.
Now, they're going to be close. They're professionals, but they're not going to be spot on necessarily. Can a baseball player throw it from outfield to home plate? Probably, and very accurately. But if you said throw it 210 feet, good luck with that. Yeah. That's the point that I'm making. You can rough estimate, it looks like it's about 200 feet, but it could be 230. You don't know.
And when you shoot a bow, at an army, that's what you train for. Sometimes it's not exactly precise. You don't need to be that precise. Like you should have. Hey, there's a group of people there. Shoot there. So when you try to pinpoint something, it's a different thing. And also, like, it's true. You can rough point it. I did a lot of construction work, right? And at some point, you get good at estimating. Well, that's about 55 feet long, right? And then you go measure, and you're like close enough that for your purpose, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's not for government work.
The point that I'm making isn't that it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's that it's not in the scrum of combat.
Yeah, that's the point I was about to say. You can make those estimations, but it takes you a second, or I would say maybe a round, right? Just like in term of combat, you can say, right? I take I try to pinpoint, I aim, basically. Like some game have the aim action. That's what it is, right? You're like taking your time to really evaluate, because there's like you mentioned, like, oh, the street, this house. That's oftentimes like the kind of thing we use to evaluate distance with parallax, and what I mean. Like how tall a house is. So now you can like do those. We have those tricks, right? But it takes time. So, and I like that when somebody say like, well, that's the way you can describe aiming, right?
Well, in a fantasy setting, though, you can have, you definitely, it's easier that way because you have built-in rangefinders on your weapons. You can have, pull it up and you're supposed automatically right there. Okay, laser set to 250 feet.
Sure, absolutely. Feet.
Yep. But in fantasy settings, you're going to be that estimate is going to be if you're a consistently a high level fantasy character, that range again, could you be off by a couple feet? Sure, but it's still going to be, that's 250 feet because I know how far away 250 feet is. So
one of the things, I've seen some things happen in chat, and I think Mr. Max may have mentioned something similar to this earlier. But we really got to get to the next part here. But I think this is a good conversation. Is in our Rifts game, RPG is dumb messed up a couple of times in terms of description. In the Pathfinder 2 game I was in, GM Fritz kept giving me this damn cursed item. I called it that. It wasn't cursed at all because I kept saying I put it away, I put it down. And he kept saying, okay, use your sap. And you're like, no, I put the damn thing away like 3 times. Is this thing cursed? What the hell? But as a player, I didn't sit there. When RPG is dumb, for example, I had everything going this way, but it was actually that way. I didn't be, wait, no, you screwed up. I just rolled with the flow. Okay, maybe my interpretation of it was wrong. I didn't sit there like, can you draw this out for me? Because I'm not understanding. No, it was just a matter of like, oh, it's okay, it's to the left. Well, then I meant to say I'm going to the left and shooting or something like that. Don't be a pedantic little baby about, well, I got to get every bonus. So I need to go three blades of grass forward in order for me to get the, just combat is a scrum. It is chaotic, and you thought you were 10 feet away when you're 11 feet away, and now you suffer the -1 or whatever it happens to be.
Doesn't matter that much.
Right. Just deal with it. If it's just about the numbers, then I think you might be doing something wrong. But to be fair, as a fighter, you might be really concerned about those numbers because combat is your life too. So,
yeah. And what you were saying earlier about descriptions, Max, Wizards of the Coast did a survey. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's 3 sentences, no more. Once you go past 3 sentences, your players lose.
I don't think there's a rule. I think there's a rule of thumb.
Yeah, I think that's a rule of thumb.
That's what it was.
They did a survey. I don't know when,
People
but yeah, okay. And it came like that 3 to 4, 5 is kind of pushing it.
Yeah, definitely Rex Teal. I am an abstract measurement unless I measure it out, and I do that as a player too. But anyway, let's get focused back on that. My apologies to Naga Hobbies for missing your super chat. That's why we had that little exposition there, and I think that was some good food for thought. And I really wish I would have had that in the last video where it should have been. So, all right, but we're going to move on now to evolution and adaptation. And I'm going to start with, I don't know, we're just going to start with Akito because he's at the top there, and I don't remember where we are. It doesn't matter. So how do warrior characters evolve over a campaign, and what are some key milestones in their development?
That's pretty, a lot of it's going to depend on the setting of the system. For example, 5th Ed, you get a lot of bonuses as you grow. they get the most attribute bonus than any other class, so they can physically make themselves better or get additional feats to make themselves better in a variety of ways. Palladium being so front heavy, they'd have to get those improvements in story or gold or some other aspect. So it's pretty. Those are the two big options there. It's either going to have a story aspect to it, or if it's built into the rule system.
Okay, so what role does the acquisition of new equipment and abilities play in the evolution of a warrior character?
Excuse me.
And just to be clear, the reason I asked you that question specifically was because you brought up Palladium. That is front heavy.
Yeah.
You're not talking necessarily a level-based game like D&D where level 1 and level 15 are so different. It's not even the same character anymore. You're talking something that's still fighting maybe some of the same stuff, just with some more ability. So equipment is more important for that character.
Yeah, the equipment is the let me rephrase this. You're asking, make sure I understand what your question, because my brain just went south on me. Why equipment is important?
What the role of equipment?
Yeah,
The role of
the role.
equipment. It's the power growth of the character. Wizards get more spells. They get more energy. They can cast more, get bigger spells. Clerics get more spells, get more blessings, things of that nature. So with the fighter, it's you can take the hit better. You can do a hit better. You can do more damage. So it's that progression that you can take on the stronger. For Palladium in fantasy, they have armor ratings, so you get that magical +5 dwarven sword. It's going to make it that much easier for you to hit a AR-15. It's like now I only need to roll a 10 on the dice, or maybe a 5, because I get +5 from my stats and my +5 from my sword. So now I can hit that AR-15 much easier.
Okay. Malachi.
Well, I was going to add, I was going to comment on the acquisition of equipment, and that can also be a detriment to the system. I've heard that about the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, where it gets to the point when you play long enough that you get into the GM ends up getting into an arms race with the player characters.
I feel like that in D&D.
Especially if that's a character that can modify equipment. That's all.
All right, well, let's have you answer the real questions. Yeah. No, you guys can absolutely continue on that discussion in a little bit, because I think there's some very valid points to that. But so how do warrior characters evolve over a campaign, and what are some key milestones in their development?
I think all it's going to depend on the story that emerges as you are playing. It's not always going to be the same. I don't think there is any set way you're going to grow. It all depends on what your character does, what they go out and do, what their motivation, what their drive is to be a hero, to go about and basically adventure in the world, what their drive and motivation is. Like, you could be, your whole drive could be that you had somebody that you butted heads with before in your past, and then maybe you lost a duel to, and you're just about taking them out. And once that's done, you're gonna have to figure out something else to do.
So, would you, Kat? You're driving me crazy, man. There was a specific question I wanted to ask you. Where is it?
Kind of specific one.
Oh, so how do you balance the warrior's progression to ensure he remains a key player without overshadowing the other characters in the party? Flip to that, or becoming useless, like a lot of people think in high-level Dungeons and Dragons games. It's like Beetlejuice, man. I mentioned his name 3 times and he pops in.
How do you keep the Fighter relevant. I mean, there's multiple ways you can be relevant. I mean, it's just the
So
key.
let's use D&D as an example. Let's start at one
Go ahead.
extreme, and then we'll flip it. So one extreme is D&D, where it's like you can look at old school D&D, where it's like the fighter starts off as king, but then the wizard and so forth build up, and then like we like to say, the wizard's an investment. So I start off having to do all the work, but in the end, you know what? You're doing all the work. Just where am I going? While you're blowing stuff up. So how do you make the warrior not feel irrelevant? Because I've heard players say, like, what's the point of playing a warrior when I get up there? The wizard and cleric are doing everything, and what's my sword gonna do?
And your campaign early.
What's that?
No,
and your campaign early.
You're missing a key feature of the fighter that the wizard doesn't get. You get an army at one point. You have the ability to have retainers and have an army to go out and do stuff. Yeah, sure. He's got his magic, but I don't think he's going to get it. The wizard's going to get as many followers as you are as a fighter. You're going to have that keep that land to rule over as well. That's one thing I think when you look at old school in D&D, you have to remember that part of it is, you're going out, you are taking a piece of land, and you are making it your own. You're making it your kingdom. That's one of the tropes that you don't really hear about in old school play.
Yeah, I don't play that way, and I know a lot of you guys in the OSR are like that. I despise that type of play. It's just not for me. I'm not mad that anybody else does it, but for me, I want to follow more Dragonlance style stuff or Lord of the Rings style stuff. We're the heroes. We're the ones doing the work, and all that other stuff is ancillary. I don't mind, having a kingdom, but I'm not bringing, as somebody said, was it 2 divisions of archers with me to go do something unless it's integral to the fact, like, okay, I'm sending out my kingdom to do that.
You mentioned
that is part of Dragonlance. There is war in Dragonlance,
and in Lord of the Ring.
Yeah.
In the end, Aragorn, which will probably be a fighter type character, fights with an army, king. Right?
Okay. Fair enough that he said, but I'm talking
I got something for you, Max.
Okay.
So basically, you're talking low level.
Once especially with old school D&D, there's one thing a fighter can use that no other class can use, and that's a magic sword. I give you some kind of legendary magic sword then.
Okay. No, that's fair. I'm not arguing. I know chat's going to blow me up over what I said. I'm just saying. And as far as the Dragonlance things go, the Heroes of Lance, there is a small part where they're dealt with the army, with the Knights of Solamnia and so forth, but that wasn't the crux of it. And Lord of the Rings, but Aragorn was almost damn near written out of the story by that point. So while you're not wrong, I'm talking. When I play, the players are the heroes, are the ones doing stuff, and I just don't like to rely on all that other stuff. That doesn't say that the people who do it, because remember, I can like both pancakes and waffles, people. That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that's not the style that I go for. So
I agree with you on a matter of style there, Max, too. So I'm with you with that on the matter of style. I'm not a big fan of it either.
But
like this domain play stuff, right? I'm not.
Yeah. Well,
that's not my jam.
You're mentioning Aragorn. Well, I mean, he raises that, gets that ghost army or whatever, I think. And then he gets to oh my god, where we're fighting Sauron's army. And he raised an army to go and distract the main army so that Frodo can get that ring and throw it into the...
Sure, but he's arguably an NPC at that point. But I do get your point. You're not wrong. I get the point that you're making, and I'm not going to try to quibble over that, because the point is to make warriors be epic, and you just did that. So, while that's not my style of play, I absolutely understand, and that is a way that folks out there can make their warriors epic, without a doubt. Let's flip the script before I move on to the next one. How do you not make the warrior too powerful? How do you not have him overtake? Like, he's so powerful, nobody can touch him, nobody can fight him, nobody can beat him.
Magic and psionics.
Humility. Put him. I think that's more of a role-playing thing. Get him in situations where he may have to go be the better man, so to speak, be that hero, that may have to do something that nobody else will do. Maybe, kind of make a sacrifice in a way. See, I see
Okay.
it more of a role-playing thing than a combat thing.
All right. Well, let me move on. Let somebody else jump in here. I'll go on to Mr. Max. How do warrior characters evolve over the campaign, and what are some key milestones in their development?
I think that's very dependent on it's very system specific in a sense, because like
Yeah.
some game will have the warrior evolve by giving them more skill and more power and more abilities that they can use to stay relevant and to kind of compete with the character speak, and to kind of compete with the other class, right? With different level of success. Some games don't have character progression at all in the sense of level, but you progress with, well, you get better gear, or you get more contact, or you get more resource, stuff like that, like more like not on your character sheet directly, kind of like progression, right? Sometimes the gear, you can even start the game with your you're a knight. You're gonna start your game with your plate armor and your sword and your big horse and everything that a knight would need. You won't need of anything else later on, right? Maybe you're gonna find something magic, but most likely the starter equipment is top level equipment, right? So then it's all about the relationship and the other ad hoc stuff. So that really depends. If you don't want to do the main play and the having retainer and stuff like that, and like I said, I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of that. And the reason I'm not a big fan of that, like you say, like Aragon was basically an NPC at that point. I don't know if I would say that. One critique I have of the domain play and stuff like that is a lot of what the people do happen off screen, right? It's like play by post and stuff like that, right? Or during this week, I'm gonna do stuff, and you send like text message to your GM or in Discord and stuff like that, and then like.
To be fair, I thought I'd trigger more people by saying the NPC thing, but chat kind of left me alone on that one. So.
Yeah. But so the progression, I think a lot of it has to be social, basically, or depending on the goal of your character, right? You achieve goals and stuff like that. Evolution, adaptation of the warrior character over the campaign. Key milestone. At some point, you gotta keep. At some point, you become somebody, right? At some point, you get some, those are kind of milestones you can expect. Or you get a reputation. Or maybe not. Maybe you're just like.
What about the Lancelot route? You lose a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting as well. I love when games do that. Okay, I'm gonna talk about Pendragon.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Because you mentioned like Lancelot. People that know me know I'm a big fan of Pendragon. The reason I like Pendragon so much, which I always say, is because everybody play a human knight. So basically, everybody's a human fighter, right? So you have to find something else to be interesting, to make your character interesting. And for me, like that push you as a role player. Like, you're gonna like your character is not interesting because you got magic. Your character is not interesting because is it the backseat. Your character is interesting for his personality, right? You have to go there because everybody's a human knight. And not only that, but in Pendragon, you age and it's expected that your character is gonna at some point become worse because you get older, and at some point you're gonna die, and then you're gonna play the son, and then you're gonna have like some more experienced character, and you're gonna play the son of your first character, which is a rookie. So it's expected to have like those, but the power curve of the game is much more shallow, right? So there's not as much difference. So the progression in there is all about like getting glory, getting known, making a name for yourself, right? And that I find interesting. That I find it's all in the role play aspect.
I know you kind of dove into this, but I'm gonna ask you to maybe dig a little deeper. So how do you keep the warrior character's development fresh and engaging over a long campaign?
You would have like, it's hard to answer that without like a specific context. Like if we talk about context of D&D, right?
Well, you keep doing Pendragon. I'm cool with that. Especially since Pendragon doesn't have some of the tropes. I think it actually it's a better fit for an answer.
In Pendragon, that's interesting because like you basically play a lot of character, right? Like it's explained in the long campaign that your character, like because you do like one adventure a year, time goes by very fast.
So you play in seasons, don't you?
Exactly. Like you do like you do one adventure per season, and then the winter phase, and then it's the next year, right? So like people joke like like with the Bro SR doing the 1 time and say like Pendragon is 152 time, right? 1 week of play is 52 week of game time. But so time goes very fast. So it's interesting because obviously your heir and the son that you're gonna play with this character is the son of his father. But sometimes the son can be different from the father. So there's always like this freshness coming back there.
Okay.
And you want like your father maybe did great deed and now you live in his shadow, or maybe you want to maybe your character did some ignoble thing and then you try to redeem yourself. There's a lot of way you can go there, but they're all like linked to role play and personality and stuff like that, right? Especially like personality is a big thing in Pendragon because you have that on your character sheet, those personality trait and those passion and those virtue that you can roll, right? So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's going to be for the people who listen later to determine if that answered it. So let's hit this $20 super chat from Law Dog. Thank you very much. We're at 71, 81. We're at about $83 right now, I think. Yeah, about $83. So we're just less. We're almost there for a giveaway. And the giveaway today is bigger than the required donation amount. It's weird. Anyway, he says for $20, thank you very much, Law Dog. Really appreciate it. As always, Palladium insanity rules help to give depth to warriors. Oh, yeah. The wizard killing from a distance has a different experience than the warrior up close. Some PTSD or night terrors can add enormous depth of character. I could not agree more.
I agree. Also, it's a very good comment. But I will also go with the flip side of that. I like system with DCC where magic corrupts you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a long-term risk to magic as well, right? You use magic for a few levels. At some point, you become like, you become barely functional at some point.
It's risk reward, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so you can go both way. And both way are interesting for their own reasons.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100% on that. All right. Did you all answer this question? Characters have because I started with you, didn't I, Akito? Okay. Yep. It's been a while. I know we spent a bunch of time because I missed that super chat. We spent a bunch of time. Do you guys have any comments for each other in terms of the progression, development of a warrior before we go on to the next question? Okay. Then last question of the night. Squirrel Hermit, by the way, go ahead and check out his channel if you have not already. Giveaway, huzzah! He is right. We have crossed the $100 threshold, and we will have a giveaway during segment 5. So stick around for that. Remember, you have to be watching to win. And who is entered in the giveaway? All members. So, not the ones that became members during the stream. Sorry, I can't keep up with that because I have to get the list. Super chatters and Rumble ranters during the stream. The other thing is members, you get it for 4 weeks. It's a 1-month membership. So you'll be automatically entered in the next 3 episodes. So you're good. Rumble ranters, super chatters, they'll be added during segment 5. So thank you, Squirrel Hermit, for that giveaway. Huzzah. Squirrel Hermit's awesome people. I need to get him on the show again too. So last question of the night is, what advice, we're going to start with Malachi on this one. What advice would you give to players and GMs for adapting the warrior archetype to fit unique or unconventional settings? I have an example if you need an example, but I'm going to let you go without the example first.
I actually Googled what you meant by warrior archetype.
That's what we've been talking about all night.
Well, I mean, when you look at the definition I found, a lot of the tenets of what a warrior is going to be pretty similar across different genres and settings. But what's core is the fact that they come from something that is heroic.
Okay.
Military, firefighters, EMTs. That is going to be the key, I think, is finding something within the setting that is looked at as being heroic and starting from that.
Okay. I want to. No, I'm going to go to Mr. Max first because I think I'm going to open that question up to everybody. So, Mr. Max, same question for you. What advice would you give to players and game masters for adapting the warrior archetype to fit unique or unconventional settings?
Yes, I think I would say think about the weapon commonly in use in your setting and the people that are paid that make a profession of using them. Think about the expectation that are put on those people, right? If you're gonna have like a warrior class in your setting, how is this warrior class seen or seen? Or they're seen as pariah, or are they seen as hero? People that make the sacrifice, that are putting their life on the line to protect everybody. Like, what is the mythology that the people in the setting put around the warrior class? Not talking about class like a character class, but class as social class.
Social class, yep.
Yeah, and think about tactics. Think about like the tactic that people use and stuff like that, right? If you play a thing with Doom, with the shield, that impact tactic and stuff like that, right? If you play something with a lot of gun, that's gonna have different tactical implication. And a warrior should know about those and be familiar with the implication of the technology that they're using.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that would be my big advice. And the one thing that think about how people in this world see the people that make a profession of being warrior.
All right, Akito. Same question for you. Advice you'd give players and game masters for adapting the warrior archetype to fit unique or unconventional settings.
There's not much that you couldn't pull from to mix and match something that would work for your table. The most unique and unconventional that I could possibly think of right off the top would be splicers or.
Isn't everybody kind of a warrior in splicers, or am I mistaken that one?
Thereabouts, but that's the splicers is the one that with the metal will kill you setting.
Yeah. So the example I was thinking of that I thought was pretty simple for me, but again, we all have different experiences, was Mage the Ascension. Everybody's a magic user. So how do you adapt the warrior archetype? Remember, it's archetype. You can still be a mage and a warrior. Akashic Brotherhood is the cheating answer. For people who don't play mage, that's fine. You don't have to know what all that is, but they're basically the martial artists. They get their magic through the purity of martial arts and so forth. So, but how would you bring that archetype into that? Now, if you want to pick splicers, how would you adapt the warrior archetype into something like splicers in a world where all metal is, well, bad?
Oh, so sorry that I completely misunderstood. You've got to have something that has that grounded, but grounded in the warrior mythos. You have mages. In Mage the Ascension, I would probably make something from Full Metal Alchemist. You got that one magic user that's nothing but muscles. That I could consider a warrior in that setting.
Sure. I mean, and that's the idea here. The idea is to look at a setting and be like, well, how can I do this? Obviously, Star Wars, you got Mandalorians, and you got, people can fight, getting away from Jedi, using Pendragon, not the game itself, but a concept from Pendragon. But let's go back to Mage the Ascension again, because I just think it's really divergent where everybody is a mage. You could make a Celestial Chorus Paladin. I mean, Celestial Chorus, that's the Catholic Church, basically. And you could make your Knights Templar and somebody who just focuses on the combat aspects of it. So there are absolute ways you can do this. But the idea of this question was just to kind of end on a fun note, just to get some brain juices flowing here. Like if you're playing a game that doesn't typically involve warriors, Ars Magica, where everybody's just a troop of wizards, how could you bring in the warrior archetype? We're not talking warrior character class, the warrior archetype, the warrior trope into that. So final comments from you guys in terms of this question, in case there's anything left on the table there, and then I think we'll wrap up.
I got 3 warriors for Toon.
Okay.
Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam, Marvin the Martian.
Okay. Yeah. But the idea, and no, but you're right. So, but I'm going to make you dive into this now. Outside the obvious, they carry guns. What makes them warriors? How are you adapting the warrior archetype to fit that toon setting?
Well, using Yosemite Sam, I mean, part of your warrior is his anger and going to that anger quite often. And Yosemite Sam is one of the angriest motherfuckers in Looney Tunes. He's always shoot first, ask questions later.
Okay. I mean, he is a cartoon character, right? And Marvin the Martian?
Well, I mean, he's trying to blow up the Earth so he can get
he's all about conquest or some shit, right?
Yeah, conquest. Yeah.
Well, the Earth is in the way.
Yeah. Get the Earth out of the way. It disrupts his view of Venus. That's what it was.
That's right. Yeah, for some reason, I always mix it up with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with making the highway. It's like no. That's right. It was. You're right. Earth gets in the way of his view of Venus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to say on that? Or really, the idea of this was again, when people watch this video later, was to just give folks an idea of like, there are ways that you can do this outside of just like, well, I'm playing the fighter class or my stats.
Or like you mentioned earlier, like if you're in a setting that where like nobody is technically a warrior, like that, then we go back to the gray zone that we talked earlier, right? If we're all like religious character, well, then the one that is more focused toward or mage, right? Ars Magica is kind of like you have like the true play where like people play multiple character and they're all gonna play one of them is gonna be a fighter, but like let's say we just like play like a game like Mage the Ascension, like you mentioned, like everybody's a mage, right? Well, if you're in a cast that is a little more offensive and that is more based toward like conquest and fighting people and like, well, then you're gonna feel like this warrior type, right? It's gonna be.
So you bring in the warrior spirit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
If you're looking for a sci-fi game that's very magic focused, Magitech Chronicles is really is a good system for that. Everything. All the main characters, you're going to have magic, and there are some good warrior archetypes where they have one of the main characters has this handheld cannon that they shoot out of, and everything is magical. It's a key part of the settings, and you can grow your magic and get all the different elements. It's just so if you're looking for something like that, that would be a great option to go with.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'd like you guys to do now is we're going to wrap up this episode. Please, any final comment, anything that you didn't get to say that you think is important about the warrior archetype? We'll start at the top with Akito, but also shout out your channel, do all that good stuff. And then I think we're going to head into segment 5, let our hair down a little bit and relax. This topic's over, but finish up with any final comments or questions, concerns you have for each other.
I'm Akito, operator of Character and Dice, where I make characters so you don't have to. And be creative. You're not nothing but muscle. You're not nothing but a meathead. You be creative. Expand and push yourself.
All right, Malachi. Any final comments about the warrior archetype, and shout out your nonsense as well. That's right. I call it nonsense. You'll be okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It can be. But when it comes to warrior, what's going to differentiate you from the pack is going to be your skills and your role playing, and dive into the role playing as hard as you can, because that's where you are going to shine. And check out my blog, Malachi's Megaversal Musings, covering right now Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. I'm looking at what I'm gonna cover next, and maybe dive into some other stuff, little tips and tricks for other systems too.
Sweet. And Mr. Max Poivant, like I said at the beginning, he's still on sabbatical on the dark side of the moon, but he deigned to show up today. Sir, tell us about any final commentary on the warrior archetype, and shout out your channel as well.
On the warrior archetype, I would just reiterate like that, you're not just a warrior, you're a full character. So play it as such. Think about why you became a warrior. Like, what's your motivation? Like, just like it's not a simple decision to do. You decide to go to dedicate yourself to combat and fighting and weapon, right? So there should be reason behind that. Think about those. That's what I would say. As for my channel, like it's a very long name, but it's written down there. Reactionary Principle Gaming with Mr. Max Bonnet.
Cheater. Hold on. There, now people can maybe see it.
Yeah.
It's also in the description, to be honest.
There you go. And we talk about I have a stream called Tear Off Your Skin, usually like on Friday late, but the date changed over. I might change it actually. Like Friday wasn't a good day for me. Might change it back to Sunday or Saturday. I'm not sure. But just subscribe and ring the bell, and you'll figure out when I go live. Sometimes I just go live on prompt as well. And on Monday, usually we have game night. And this Monday is going to be a special one because I'm going to run a game of Bastard Sword with my crew, Crispy, Rick 28mm, and Phil the Trill. And for people that don't know, Bastard Sword is the game that I have been working on for a while. So if you're curious about what I'm doing, well, there you'll see. And there's going to be a lot of fighter involved.
There we go. Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Got to knock out a couple of super chats here, and then I'll give my final commentary. Law Dog, thank you very much for the $5. Says, in case I haven't said it lately, really loving the new format, Max. I'm getting, it was rough at first. There are some people who wanted the whole, don't get me wrong, segment 5 gets weird, but wanted the old style, we'll say. And I have been quite picky about the people that come on the show, or at least I've been trying to be picky about the people that come on the show. And some people feel kind of put off by that. I understand, but that's just the evolution of the way things are going here. I'm liking it as well. I think I've got some improvements to do as a host. I think, the things that we can do better, but generally speaking, this is a great format. I'm really liking it. I hope more people, come on the show, differing opinions, people with different thoughts, different ideas, so that we're not going to argue necessarily, but we can put it out there because the idea is food for thought for you. So that and I didn't like what Mr. Max had to say. I'm going to go with what Akito said, or whatever. That's what we're going for here, is that concept. So I'm really glad you guys are liking it. Again, most of the haters have stopped yelling at me about it, so that's good. If it means that I lost some viewers and I get some new ones, it's just the way it works. Look at any YouTube channel you follow and see if it's exactly the same as it was 5 years ago.
And I got a question for everybody that's questioning this new format. How many channels right now are doing anything like this? I don't think there are that many. They're more focused on whatever's big or just complaining.
And let's be honest, Diversity in Dragons blows me out of the water when it comes to we'll call it the rant streams or whatever. I think he does a better job of it. I don't need to compete with him.
No. But I mean, this is something I think the hobby needs. I think I can help make the hobby better, and I don't think there's enough out there.
And the final super chat. Oh, go ahead.
I said I'm happy to make the cut. That's all.
Well, I'm happy here. I thought it was a really good show tonight. I think this might have been our best one, and I mean that. I think this was the best one so far. Don't get me wrong. That falls back on me. There are things that I need to do better, and I hopefully work some of those kinks out. And hey, it was a good show. And the final super chat, Law Dog says, for $5, everyone hit like. Don't be slackers. I should, because I know Max is too humble to do so. I'm humble? Who the hell is this? When did that happen? No, I love it. Thank you very much, Law Dog, and thank you for you and Mercurius for gifting the memberships. And man, we got a lot of stuff still to do tonight, but that's going to happen outside the video. So where's my button? Where's my button? Like, subscribe, and share. By the way, for folks, it's going to be too late if you're not watching live, but hey, look for the videos out there. This Sunday, Father's Day, we're going to have Kevin Sambita, Shano, and Robertson on to talk about Palladium books. And we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the status of that, Yin Sloth Jungles, expeditions. Kevin's going to kind of give an update on him, for those who, know what's been going on with his life. What else? We're gonna have a Q&A session. It's gonna be a fun time. We really love when those guys are on. They're adults. We give them grief. They tell us we don't care. We love Palladium. We love those guys, and we cannot wait to talk to them. So look forward to that. And if it's already passed, which it will be, hey, go look for those videos in the YouTube channel. And we really enjoy the conversations with them. And I hope you will as well. So with that, I hope everybody has a great night.